Welcome back. Today, I want to show you how to use the four-step approach that I shared in my last video. We will build a simple financial statement, income statement and balance sheet using the same approach. This approach works for almost any kind of repeating report. In finance and accounting, once a report is set up, it's used every month or quarter, so this method fits perfectly for those recurring reports. To make it feel real, I built a small demo data set, a mock trial balance, and a chart of account that looks close to what you see in a real company. Today's session is simple, step-by-step demo. We will build a balance sheet and income statement. As you can see, there are two drop-down menus, one for the date and one for the measure type. You can change the report date. For example, if you pick December, the income statement updates right away by pulling data from your model. You can also switch between month to date, quarter to date, year to date views, and the measure updates automatically. It's a simple idea, but very powerful. For the balance sheet, everything is cumulative, so month to date, quarter to date, year to date, all show the same total. Once you understand the basics, you can expand easily. You can add plans, budgets, or forecasts along with your actual trial balance. If your company updates forecasts every month, you can load those too and compare actual versus forecast or actual versus budget. That's what I do in my current role. This demo is simple, but you can apply it directly to your work. The data may look different, but the core concept stays the same. Let's have a quick recap of what we covered in the last video. Step 1, proper data set. Make sure the data you import into Excel's data model is clean and in the right format. If not, reshape it into a long, machine-friendly layout. Step 2, Star Schema. You want to connect your dimension tables and fact tables in a one-to-many relationships. Every good financial model also needs a date table for time-based calculations. So we're going to create date table, and then I'm going to show you additional steps to mark it as a date table in Excel. Step 3, DAX. Instead of using Excel's built-in totals like sum of or average of, count of, we are going to create our own measures. We're going to start with the basic measures like total amount, then build time-based measures like MTD, QTD, and YTD. Step 4, Cube functions. Cube functions will bring the model into Excel, so reports refresh automatically. Or reports, or you can say measures. All right, let's close this view, and then we're gonna look at the files you'll get. The first file is the trial balance. That's where we start. Inside the folder, you will see monthly trial balances saved as CSV files. When you open one, you'll find 3 columns: account, account name, and amount. It's very simple. It's your fact table, the base for everything. Next, let's open the chart of account files. This table has key details we need: account number, account name, category, financial section, and caption. Normally, the account number connects to trial balance, so every transaction can match the descriptions. Each account also belongs to a financial category, like asset, liability, equity, revenue, expense, etc. Later, we'll use the categories to roll up numbers into the right section of our report. In this file, you'll also see financial section column. It tells you whether the account belongs to the balance sheet or income statement. Then there's a financial caption, which actually defines how each line appears in your financial final report, right? Like cash or cash equivalent, account receivable, or operating expenses. This chart of account is a dimension table. After linking the tables, we're gonna check for duplicates. In Excel, you can use conditional formatting or remove duplicates to make sure each account number appears only once. This step keeps your data clean. The chart of account is the backbone of your financial model. It tells the system how to read every transaction and where to show it on the report. Sometimes your trial balance comes in a wide format, each month in a separate column, like January, February, March, and so on. That layout is easy for people, but not for the tools. For reporting models, we need to convert it to a long format where each row shows one account, one month, and one value. So let's bring in the trial balance first. All right, what we are going to do is get data. In this case, the trial balance is inside a folder, right? Instead of loading a single file, we can actually bring in the entire folder at once. There is an option in Power Query to get data from file, from folder, as you can see. You'll see different options like Excel workbook, text CSV, or database sources, but we don't need to go through all of them now. Later, we'll look at creating a blank query, but for now, let's just pull data from the folder. The easiest way to copy the folder path directly and paste it in. Once you do that, Power Query immediately shows your preview, the metadata from the folder. You will see columns such as content, name, extension, date created, date accessed, and the folder path. That's the basic structure that Power Query automatically recognizes. Now, if you look at the options, you can choose combine and transform data, combine and load, or combine and load to. Those are useful when you know all your files have identical clean layouts. In our case, we need a few transformation steps, so instead of loading directly, let's just select transform data. Once the folder is connected, you will see the preview. Here, the key columns we care about are content and name. Each content value represents the binary file. That's our actual trial balance data. Let's open one file to confirm what's inside. You'll notice something important. None of those trial balance files actually include a date field. So we don't know which month each file belongs to. And that's something we have to create ourselves. Fortunately, when I save these files, I included the month information in the file name. For example, trial balance underscore April underscore 2024.csv. We can extract that month and year from the name column. When you click on content cell, you'll see the file size, name, and type. The extension column is fine. We don't really need it. So let's just keep only the content and name columns and then remove the rest. Just right click and choose remove other columns. Now, because these are CSV files that I built earlier as a proper data set, we just need to extract the useful part of the file name. There are several ways to do that, but here's a clean approach. We'll use replace values to remove any unnecessary words like trial balance. Then we also remove the extension .csv extension. After that, we'll deal with the underscores. To convert the cleaned name into a proper date, first replace each underscore with a slash. That gives Power Query a recognizable date pattern. If you try converting directly before this step, it will throw an error because it can interpret the string. Once you replace underscores with the slashes, Power Query recognizes as a valid date format. Now, rename the column to something clear. I usually call it month and date. By default, when you transform it into a date type, Power Query set it to the first day of the month. But for our reporting purposes, we usually want the month and date instead. So go to the Transform tab, Date, and the month. Now your date column correctly shows the last day of each month. Perfect for matching month-end financials. At this point, you have a clean folder connection and the proper date column. What you can do next is click on the content column and Excel will automatically evaluate it. Power Query looks at the first file, checks the first column, and then builds a preview of the structure. When you click OK, it usually does a good job. Don't get me wrong, it's smart, but it can also create extra helper queries and then sample steps that clutter things up. Sometimes it's missing something or adds a few unnecessary files. The whole workspace starts to look messy. So what I'm going to do is go back a few steps and then clean this up manually. I don't want all those additional auto-generate files. I just want one clean query to work with. Now, the more you can use Power Query, the more natural it becomes. Since we import CSV files quite often, I'll show you a method that's both cleaner and more flexible. If this is your first time, just follow along with what I'm doing. It will make sense as we go. So instead of letting Excel decide how to interpret the files, we'll tell it exactly what to do using a function called csv.document. Right now, Power Query labels them generically as a column 1, column 2, and so on. We want to use the first row as headers. You can do that visually by clicking Use First Row as Headers or directly by typing table.promote headers. Once you apply it, you will see all columns properly named, account number, account name, amount, etc. This way, when you append the files later, everything aligns correctly with no mismatched fields. Next, let's deal with the null values or empty rows. Sometimes Power Query brings in extra blank lines at the bottom or rows missing account numbers. If an entry doesn't have an account number, we don't need it. So filter out all rows where account number is null. Once filtered, you will see the dataset shrink slightly. That's a good sign. Now, all your remaining records are valid. You may notice a warning. One column shows error for about 4% of the rows. That usually means Power Query tries to interpret blank cells as numbers. Let's fix that by replacing null values with a 0. Go to Transform, Replace Values, type null, and replace with a 0. Now the column becomes 100% valid, no errors, no empties. We can confirm that our data set is now fully clean. Account numbers are filled, numeric values are valid, and all columns are consistent. Next, let's check the data types. Account number, whole number, that's fine. Account name, text, correct. Amount, decimal number. Month and date is a date type. Everything looks right. Now we are ready to load this clean data set into the Excel data model. Go to Home, close and load to, only create connections. Then check the box, add this data to the data model. This step is extremely important. It allows us to use this data later for relationships and DAX measures. Click OK, and the Power Query connects everything behind the scenes. In my case, all 912 rows of trial balance have been combined and loaded as one table inside the model. Perfect. That's the entire trial balance process done. Next, we'll bring in the chart of account or COA. Here's the file. Again, we go to get data from file from workbook. Since Power Query remembers the folder path we used before. It will open the same directory by default. Select the chart of account Excel file and then click OK. You'll see a navigation pane. There's only one sheet, sheet 1, so we'll select that. And again, instead of loading directly, we'll choose transform data to preview and clean if necessary. Immediately, you'll notice Power Query recognizes the column headers, account number, account name, category. It automatically promoted the first row as headers and assigned the proper data types, whole number, text, and so on. That's exactly what we need. Sometimes if a source file isn't clean, you might have to fix the column headers manually, but this one looks perfect. Let's rename the query to chart of account for clarity. Check the quality indicator at the top, 100% valid across all columns. Everything looks clean, no nulls, no errors. Now we'll go through the same process again. Go to Home, close and load to, only create connections, and check add this data to the data model. Click OK, and Power Query adds the COA table into the same data model as our trial balance. Fantastic. Now we have two data tables in the model, the trial balance and the chart of account. Now we are going to build the calendar table, the backbone of all time-based analysis. So what we'll do is to go to get data, but this time instead of importing from a file, we'll create it from scratch. Go to get data from other sources, blank query. Let's rename the query properly. I like it called it simply calendar. Always name it clearly so you can recognize it easily in your model later. Now what we need here is an M script that generates a date table. So I'll open my reference file, press Ctrl A, Ctrl C to copy the entire code, and then come back here and then press Ctrl V to paste it in. If Power Query says no syntax errors have been detected, we are good to go. This is how you build the calendar table step by step. Once you're done, go to Home, close and load, and just like before, choose only create connections and add this data to the data model. So now we've got the calendar table set up. We already have chart of accounts and trial balance. Now this makes our third table the calendar table. Let's go back to Power Pivot, Manage. You'll see all three tables listed there, TB, COA, and calendar. The calendar table must be recognized as the official date table in the model. So here's how you do that. Go to the Design tab in Power Pivot. There's an option called Mark as a Date Table. Click on it. When the dialog box appears, Power Pivot will ask which column represents your date. It should automatically detect the column named date, but if not, you can manually select it. Once you select it, click OK, and that's it. Excel and data model now officially know that this is your date table. Alright, now let's head back to the Home tab and open the diagram view in Power Pivot. Here you can actually see the structure of our model. This is where we start shaping our Star Schema. So in our setup, we have the chart of account table as a dimension table, the calendar table as another dimension table, and the trial balance as the only fact table. This is the basic structure of a Star Schema. One central fact table connected to multiple dimension tables. Now what we need to do is create relationships between these tables. Don't worry, it's very simple to do. Let's just start with the account number field. We'll take account number from the chart of account and then drag it over to account in the trial balance, the connection line appears automatically, showing a one-to-many relationship. You'll see a 1 on the chart of account side and the asterisk on the trial balance side. The 1 means each account number appears only once in the chart of account. That's our primary key. The many or asterisk means multiple entries for the same account number exist in the trial balance. That's our foreign key. Together they form a one-to-many relationship. One account can appear many times in the trial balance. You'll also notice a small arrow on the line. That arrow shows the direction of filtering. The direction goes from chart of account to trial balance, which means that chart of account filters the trial balance data, not the other way around. This is important for how you measure visuals behave later in reports. Now that we connected those two tables, let's also connect the calendar table. We'll link the date column in the calendar to the month and date in the trial balance. Again, this is a one-to-many relationship. One date in the calendar can match many records in the trial balance. You'll see the arrow again, this time flowing from calendar to trial balance. That means the calendar controls time-based filtering in your analysis. And that's it. Our relationships are now set up. You can see clearly that both dimension tables, chart of account and calendar, connect into central trial balance table, forming a clean, simple star schema. Alright, so let's move on. Earlier I talked about how to transform a not so proper data set into something clean and usable. Let's actually walk through the process step by step, but before we start, a quick note. This section is just for demonstration purposes. The data we are transforming here isn't actually used in the model later on. It's only meant to show you the concept, how to convert a wide format data set into a long format one. Real-world data transformation can be much more complex, but this is a simple, easy-to-follow example, so you can understand the basic idea. So if you like, you can skip the portion, since it's just a demo and not a part of the final model. Alright, let's begin. In this example, our monthly TV is stored in an Excel file. I'll import it into Power Query. Let's go to Data, Get Data from Excel Workbook. Now let's import the monthly trial balance file. Inside that file, you'll see two tabs, Check and TV Wide. The Check tab is just something I use to make sure the debits and credits add up to 0, so we don't need to import that one. We'll import the TV Wide tab instead. When the preview window is opened, the data looks fine overall, but the column names don't look right. So we'll fix that by promoting the first row to use it as a column headers. But Excel didn't automatically promote the headers, so let's fix that first. Click Use First Row as Headers. Now we'll see the column names, account name, account number, and then the monthly columns from January through December 2025. We don't actually need every column right now, but we'll leave them in for the demonstration. The main thing we want to do is reshape this wide table into a long format. So instead of having one column for each month, we'll have 3 fields: month and date, account name, and amount. That's the format Power Query and data models like best. To do that, select the first 2 columns. Those are our anchor columns. Then choose unpivot other columns. Watch what happens. Power Query instantly reshapes the data. Now we've got account name, month end, and the value. Perfect. That's exactly the structure we want. Let's tidy up the column names to make them clear. Rename the first column to month and date, and then rename value to amount. Now, sometimes when you import files like this, you'll see a few unwanted rows. maybe subtotal lines, checks, or totals like sum 0. Those can easily sneak in. Let's filter them out. Go to the month and date column. Choose text filters does not begin with in the check or the letter C. That removes those non-data rows, so we are left with just actual transactional data. Next, check the amount column. It should contain numbers only, but sometimes you will see blank or text entries. That's fine. We'll just replace them. Okay, select the column, right click. Everything is stored as decimal numbers. Sometimes Power Query gives us small quality warnings like 97% valid. That just means it found a few blanks or mismatched values before the replacement. Replacing null with a zeros fixed issue. Now check the account number or account name columns. If any rows are missing account identifiers, we'll filter them out because every row must belong to an account. Once filtered, all columns should show 100% valid in the quality bar at the top. Now let's make sure month and date is recognized as date. Power Query sometimes reads it as a text, so we'll convert it to proper date type. You can right click and you can select. You can also reorder columns to month and date appears first. That will match the structure of the trial balance format we used in the model earlier. And that's it. We've successfully converted a messy wide format Excel table into a clean analytical long format data set. This step is essential for learning how to prepare data properly before building a data model. Remember again, this particular data set is not used in our model. It's just a quick example to show the mechanics of reshaping data. In real business scenarios, you'll often deal with more complex files that need additional cleaning steps. For example, handling inconsistent headers, missing month, or different naming conventions. But this demo gives you the foundation for how to approach it. All right. Now, let's talk about the next step, writing DAX measures. Again, there are a couple of things we need to think about. When you start writing DAX, you should always plan your calculation in layers. At least, this is how I approach it. We'll build the three main categories of measures, monthly, quarterly, and yearly calculations. And before we get into these, we'll start with what I call the basic or foundational measures. Simple totals that other measures will reference later. Once you have these building blocks in place, you can add filters and time intelligence to make the model fully dynamic. So, first step, open Power Pivot, Measures, and New Measures. Welcome to the world of DAX. It's very similar in logic to Excel, but it runs inside the model. Let's create our first basic measure. This one will calculate the total trial balance, and we'll use it later inside all other measures. We can name it something like total TB. In DAX, functions follow a syntax that feels familiar. Sum, bracket, and table name, and then you're going to put it the column name inside the square bracket. Just like Excel's sum function, but with a table and the column references. So we'll write total TB equals, so that's the name of DAX. And you always start with the equal sign, and sum, that's a function, and then you're gonna open bracket, and then TB is the table name, and then amount is a column name. Always check the formula syntax. If there is no error, click OK. Now change the formatting, set it as a whole number, and then turn on the thousand separator. We don't need decimals for this one. And there we go. We create our first measure. Now let's see what it does. Go back to Excel, insert pivot table, because we already have a data model. we'll select from data model instead of external sources. Once the pivot table opens, notice that all the tables we added, trial balance, chart of account, and calendar, are now visible and connected. That's because we built the relationships earlier using primary and foreign keys. Let's test it by building a quick view of the financial statement. Drag the section field from the chart of account table into rows. You will immediately see the balance sheet and income statement sections appear in the pivot table. Now add a category to the rows as well. Within each section, you'll now see categories like assets, liabilities, and equity under the balance sheet, and the revenue and expenses under the income statement. Next, let's add the financial statement captions to the rows. This gives you the individual line items within each category. Then, from the calendar table, drag a month and date into the columns area. Finally, drag the only measure total TB into the values area. You will see the numbers populate right away. Notice that the column totals show 0, which is exactly what we expect, because in a trial balance, total debit must equal total credit. That means our DAX measures is working perfectly. All right, let's make a month and date calendar named range using the data from the calendar table. First, we're going to create a new tab and call it input. This is where we'll bring in the calendar data from our data model. Now go to the insert tab on the ribbon, click pivot table, and choose from data model. I'm happy with the location that Excel suggests, so just click OK. Drag month and date down to the rows area. That's all we need here, just a clean list of all month and date. Next, right click anywhere inside the pivot table to open the menu and then select pivot table options. Under the totals and filters tab, uncheck show grand totals for rows and columns. Then go to layout and format and uncheck auto fit column width on update. Click OK. That's all we need for now. With our cursor still inside the pivot table, go to the design ribbon, then under pivot table style options, uncheck column headers to keep it clean. Now select the date range in the pivot table, go up to the name range at the top left, go to the name range box at the top left, right above column A, and the type calendar, then press enter. Perfect. If you click on the drop down arrow in the name box, you will see calendar listed. And when you select it, Excel highlights the full date range. That means your name range is set up correctly, and we are now ready to use it to create our dynamic date selector for the report. All right, now that we built our DAX measures, it is time to move into Excel and connect the financial statement using Cube functions. The first thing you should know is that there are several different Cube functions in Excel. If you type equals CUBE into a cell, you'll see a list. There are about 7 or 9 in total. The most commonly used are CubeMember and CubeValue, and those are the ones we'll focus on here. CubeMember returns an item or a member from the data model, things like captions, sections, or filters like month and date. Think of it as pulling the label of something. On the other hand, CubeValue returns the actual value from the cube, the number we calculate in DAX. That's what we'll use to display our metrics such as totals, MTD, QT, and YTD values. For our financial statement, we'll use a CubeMember to define each row, revenue, COGS, etc., and the CubeValue to return the actual amount for those rows. To make this work well, you need to clearly understand your data model structure, which tables are dimensions, which one is a fact table, and how they are related. Once you know that, the formulas become much easier to write. Let's just start building our income statement layout in Excel. We'll have the standard flow, revenue, cost of goods sold. We'll give gross margin. We're going to subtract operating expenses to arrive at operating income, less interest expense, will give us earnings before tax, and the net of tax expense will give us net income. Across the top, we'll later bring in a date filter so the statement can show specific month result. Let's begin with the CubeMember function. In any cell type equal CubeMember, here's what happens. The first argument, this workbook data model, connects Excel to our data model. The second argument defines which table and field to pull data from. Let's begin with the CubeMember function. In any cell type equal CubeMember, then here's what happened. The first argument, this workbook data model, connects Excel to our Power Pivot model. The second argument, chart of account, financial caption, and revenue, define which table and the field to pull from. In this case, COA, financial caption column, and then the field called revenue. Press enter, and then you'll see revenue appear. That's your first successful CubeMember link from the data model. You can copy and paste this down to create other rows, other revenue, cost of goods sold, operating expenses, and so on. Just changing the final member name inside the formula. To make the layout clean, I like to indent sub-items like other revenue slide to the right. At this point, you built the skeleton of your income statement. Each row is now connected to a corresponding member in the data model. Next, we'll create a date filter. The process is the same. We're going to type equal CubeMember, this workbook data model, comma, and then we're going to select from calendar table and month and date column, and then we're going to enter finally month and date 2024 12/31. This connects to the calendar table and specify the particular month and date, December 31st, 2024. You can change this date later through a drop down. So now our statement will always calculate for the specific reporting date. Now comes the key step, pulling the actual numbers using CubeValue. Type equals CubeValue and start with this workbook data model. That's our connection name. Put a comma, and Excel will now show options for the second argument. In this case, select measures and then choose total TB since we only have one measure at this point. Now close the bracket to complete the function. Let's hit enter, and we get 0. That's actually correct. When you add up all trial balance accounts, the total has to be 0. The sum of debits equals the sum of credits. So this tells us the measure is working properly. Now from here, we'll start adding filters, or what's called member expressions. The first member expression is the measure. We already have that. The second one is our revenue item. So click on the cell that contains revenue CubeMember function. Let's fix the column reference so it stays in place. Press enter, and now we get negative 605, 423, 541. That's the total revenue for the entire table. But we don't want the total. We want the revenue for a specific date. So for the third member expression, we'll link it to the date CubeMember cell. Let's fix the row reference this time so we can copy the formula down later. Hit enter again, and then there it is, 24,869,357. That's the revenue for December 2025. Let's quickly check the pivot table, and yes, the revenue matches perfectly. So our CubeValue function is working exactly as expected. Now, since our income statement structure is already set up, let's copy the formula down to the rest of the rows. Just my personal preference, I like to use the aggregate function to total any rows or cells inside a structure. It will keep things consistent and easy to manage. I'll fast forward a bit here as I fill out the rest of CubeMember formulas, and after a few minutes, everything's ready. All the formulas are populated and working properly. You'll get a copy of this Excel file later, so you can check and follow along for yourself. Right now, our date filter is static. It's just set to just one specific date, but we want to be able to click on a drop-down arrow and change the date. So the values update automatically. We already set up the calendar name range earlier, so let's use that to create a date selector. Go to the Data tab, then click Data Validation. On the settings, change the arrow option to List, and in the source box type equal Calendar. Click OK. Now you've created a drop-down menu links to our calendar name range. When you click the arrow, you can pick any date from the list. Next, we need to make the CubeMember function dynamic, so it updates automatically based on the selected date. For this, Excel has a special syntax. You can link a cell inside a cube function by using double quotes, ampersand, and the cell reference, and close it off with another ampersand and the double quotes. That's it. But there's one important note. You need to wrap the date in the text function so Excel formats it properly. The syntax looks like text and the cell reference, comma, and give double quotes and close off. Without that, the direct link won't work correctly. It's confusing if two identical dates appear in the list, or users try to edit the date manually. To make things clearer, I usually hide the CubeMember date cell. To do that, select the cell, press Ctrl+1 to open Format Cells, choose Custom, and type 3 semicolons. Then click OK. Now the date disappears, but when you click on the cell, you can still see the value in the formula bar. Later, if you like, you can lock the cell so users don't accidentally change it. I did not want to waste time showing this part in real time, so I fast forwarded the video a bit. The rest of this section is mostly about copying the column to the right, dragging the formula down, debugging a few errors along the way, and validating numbers to make sure the cube members and values are displaying and calculating correctly. This is the reality when you first build the report. A significant amount of time goes into validating numbers and confirming that all the cube functions work as intended. I also added the balance sheet to the right of the income statement just to make it easier to view everything side by side. Now, let's create our MTD, QTD, and YTD measures and make them dynamic. First, we'll create a simple drop-down list with the three options, MTD, QTD, and YTD. We're using the total MTD, total QTD, and total YTD functions. These are some of the most commonly used time intelligence functions, and Microsoft made them as a shortcut. They are really just calculate functions. So if I have to add one more must-know function to your DAX toolkit, it will be the calculate function. The syntax is simple. The first argument is your expression. In our case, that's our basic measure, total TB. The second argument is your date column. That's it. The syntax is the same for QTD and YTD as well. Once the measures are ready, we'll copy the formulas throughout the rest of the income statement. There's also one additional measure to calculate cumulative net income. This is important because current month net income doesn't roll up to retained earnings until the following month. That's how I've set it up here. But keep in mind, some companies don't roll up their net income to retained earnings until the year-end close is completed, so you may need to adjust the logic for your own setup. Now, let's create the MTD net income measure. The syntax uses calculate function. The first argument is our measure, MTD TB, and the rest of the arguments are filters. In this case, we only need one filter where the financial statement section equals income statement. What this does is simple. The calculate function first filters the trial balance to include only the income statement items, and then it uses MTD TB as the expression. So all income statement items for the month get added up correctly. Once the measure is created, go to the retained earnings line and then add a CubeValue function to bring in the MTD net income measure. You will notice right away the difference disappears to 0
that means everything ties out perfectly. Now let's check the difference. And as you can see, the difference is 0. Everything balances perfectly. Okay, as I promised, this is our final report. With this setup, you never have to manually prepare or rely on lookup functions again, which, in my opinion, are much harder to maintain and manage. If you're an accountant, you know what it means to deliver accurate numbers on time. With this approach, your reports are faster and more accurate. Enjoy the video, and if you found this helpful, leave a comment or subscribe for more tutorials. In the next video, we'll take this same 4-step approach and then build the same report in Python. Python, in my opinion, is a game changer for the accounting profession. It makes everything faster, more accurate, and they let you do things you never imagined possible. Stay tuned.